The CGA Tour, a podcast unlike any other. Now your host, Calvin Alexander.
Welcome back to yet another episode of the CGA Tour podcast. As always, here I'm your host, Calvin Glen Alexander, and it is a game week for the Cowboys. We're playing the Tulsa Hurricanes just up the turnpike, I guess. But I brought on Matt and Ryan here with the Golden Hurricast, and we can kind of share some notes and details of, hey, here's recapping how our games went this past weekend. Here's how kind of to beat either of our own teams, and then give a score prediction here at the end. So, Matt and Ryan, thanks so much for joining me here on Monday night. How you guys doing?
Doing great, Calvin. Nice to meet you. Nice to see the podcast. I haven't heard it, so I'll listen to it after this, see what's up. But very happy to be here.
Yeah, same. Super excited for this week. I feel like it's been a couple of years since we've gotten to see OSU in person. So I'm excited for this and the next 8. So
yeah, no kidding. The most memorable game I have of the Tulsa OSU rivalry kind of playing is not the most recent one, but it's the one that started at midnight or 1 a.m. It seems like 10 plus years ago where, just weather kept pushing it back. And then they ended up saying, let's go ahead and just keep playing it. And, I didn't go to the game for whatever reasons, hang out with friends or whatever. Normally would have gone with my dad. Ended up kind of being very happy that I didn't end up having to go and then get back at 4 a.m. before Sunday at church or something. So that's my most memorable experience there overall. I don't know if you guys have one as well.
I mean, I'll take the easy one. I went to the one in Stillwater back in 2020 and I had a great time at that game. Went with my wife and we had a wonderful time up there. Stillwater was a blast. Hung around the city after the game and hung out there for a while and saw a loss for Tulsa, but it was a close one. If I remember right, I think it was no one scored for a really long time, maybe the entire fourth quarter. I can't remember how that went down, but I know it was close. I know you guys had Chuba Hubbard that year and we had Zaven Collins and it was a kind of a star power game on both sides and it was a good one.
Yeah, all my Tulsa OSU games were Tulsa losses, which is unfortunate. I think the one you're talking about that got pushed and pushed and pushed was 2 years before Ryan and I started at Tulsa. So maybe the most memorable game, and this is kind of sad, is 2019 when I think we went into halftime with a 2-score lead. And then Chuba absolutely dominated the second half and we lost by 3 touchdowns or something like that. So somewhat frustrating on the Tulsa side, but I don't know. Maybe we can change that sometime in the next decade.
Decade I'll be much happier with as long as it's not this year. It seems like we've built up so much pressure, emphasis. OU's finally gone from the conference, all that type of stuff. So we're hoping to make, kind of the push comes to shove here. Ollie Gordon, Alan Bowman. This is definitely Alan Bowman's last year of college. I don't think he can come back for 8. And this is Ollie Gordon's, assuming last year as well, too, because he's NFL draft eligible. So we'll have a lot of fun. Hopefully it's this year we kind of make a push for the Big 12 championship. But with that being said, I want to ask you guys what you thought about your game this past weekend here against, and I believe it was at Arkansas State, and what you guys thought of it as well, too.
It was a tough one. We just finished talking about it on our podcast as well, so very fresh in my head. But it was weird. I don't know how close you watched that game, but we were really rolling that first half, looking really good. At halftime, we were up 17-7. It should have been 24-7. Bill Jackson, our second running back, fumbled the touchdown run out of the back of the end zone, which took away a score, obviously for us. Gave Arkansas State the ball back there, and we were looking fantastic that first half. Really thought we were gonna. It looked like Tulsa domination territory, blowout style thing was coming, and halftime hit, everything flipped around. The team looked totally different in the second half. We looked like we were kind of burning clock, looking complacent, looking happy with how things went in the first half, and got dinked and dimed all the way down the field the second half and ended up losing by 4. So it was a tough one, but that's how it goes sometimes, I suppose.
Yeah, just frustrating, but unfortunately not unfamiliar for Tulsa, especially in the last 5 or so years, going back to Philip Montgomery when he was here. Just a lot of games that on paper we probably should have won, but we just did something or had some weird bounce or a boneheaded play, just let it slip through our grasps. And it just, it sucks because I feel like there's a lot of momentum kind of going into this past week. And now it's, all right, you lost this one that you could have taken, and now you're facing OSU, like top. What are you guys ranked? Like 15, 13?
14 or
14.
15, depending on which poll you look at. Yeah.
Yeah. So now you're staring down a top 15 team, which last year was similar when we took on OU. So it's just would have felt a lot better if we had actually escaped with the win. But
even had a chance down the stretch. You know, we hadn't done anything all second half. We scored 7 points in the second half and 0 in the fourth quarter. And despite all that, 4 straight punts at the end of the game, we still had a chance. Third and 6, I think it was, on Arkansas State's final or second to last drive. It ended up being, and we got the stop, tackled way in the backfield. It probably would have been 3rd and 14 had this play stood, and we would have gotten the ball back with a chance to go win the game outright. And right when our guy made that tackle, Gavin Potter, a linebacker, good player, stupid play. He, gave him a little extra shove there at the end, right when we got the stop, and unnecessary roughness on him. They obviously, keep going and run the clock out from there. So killer had a chance at the end to get it done despite all the nothingness of the second half, and still couldn't do it.
Yeah. I think watching from the Stillwater perspective for the OSU one, it was definitely your guys' game. The second half went the opposite way that we hope every second half we ever have goes in the future. Of just, basically we proved this past weekend that we are a second half team, or we want to be the Cardiac Cowboys, whatever it may be, because somehow we covered the opening spread of 7.5 by winning by 8, of course, but still playing a 2 overtime game. It's just not easy to pull that off there. Yeah. And with that being said, too, I was very, very frustrated as an Oklahoma State fan because going into half, hey, we're down quite a bit. It looks like we're not being able to do anything whatsoever. I assume you guys had the opposite reaction kind of to your first half, at least.
Yeah, it was just nothing happened. I couldn't believe it. It just felt like it was so clearly going Tulsa's direction for so long, and then it just wasn't. We 2 of the last 4 drives, we did the same thing. We ran, pass, punt. Ran, pass, punt, and just trying to kill some clock, which I get. You're winning and you're trying to, I guess, burn some stuff off the clock. But at some point you got to be the aggressor. Even when we were down, we were kind of taking it slow too. So, it was weird to watch in real time, and I'm sure they had their reasons for doing it, the coaching staff, but they weren't clear to us.
Yeah, there was a moment kind of at the end of the first half on our final drive where 4th and 1, and made the decision to punt it instead of going for it. It's just a weird situation. Ryan, this is the one where we went for it on 3rd and 1, right? Like took a deep shot, didn't get it, and then punted it, which is kind of weird. You'd think if you're going to go for it deep on 3rd and 1, like 3rd and short, you're just going to try and run up the middle or something, get that 1 yard, and we ended up punting it. And so it's right there, right before the end of the first half, things kind of started to slide into just boring, stale football, which is what.
And I'm pretty sure this is the correct stat. Our leading receiver last year is back this season, Camden Benjamin. And the guy, he's a baller. He was great last season. He's been great so far this season. This game, he had 6 catches for 131 yards and a touchdown. The stat I'm trying to pull up here is all of that was in the first half. He had 0 catches in the second half. Maybe 1. I'm pretty sure it was 0 catches in the second half. And that's just to illuminate the point of everything happened for us right away, and then nothing happened, and we lost.
Yeah, I gotta say, it just seems so similar to at least how we opened up our game. But at the same point, you guys go up 21-7.5. I think we had the exact same score except for opposite for us. We had 7-21. But overall, how would you say Tulsa starts games? I mean, is this normal for you guys? Hey, we're going to score a bunch to start off the games, or kind of, I know I'm asking a team that's, currently, 1-1 on the season here. So you guys won the previous week, and how would it normally work out in your mind?
I'd say the opposite usually.
Yeah.
At least what we're used to doing. We started this podcast in 2018. Philip Montgomery was the head coach, and I think for the vast majority of the tenure that we've done this show, it has been not being able to get off to fast starts effectively. especially against any reasonable opponent, And so this was kind of an aberration. Like this looked really good. That's why that was another reason why I was so jazzed about this first half. Obviously, winning will do that. Being up big, but it's a rare occurrence in Tulsa Golden Hurricane land to see that happen. And it is a second-year head coach, so maybe that will become a more common occurrence under Kevin Wilson than it was under Philip Montgomery. But I've yet to see that consistently, so I was happy to see it against a D1 opponent in Arkansas State that might be a solid team this year in the Sun Belt. They had the returning freshman player of the year last year in their quarterback, Jalen Rayner. They're a solid team. It was nice to see us get off to that fast start. Hopefully we see it against Oklahoma State, but it's going to be much tougher.
Yeah, it's weird because we're maybe not great towards the end of the game, and we generally come off very slow in the first quarter. We are a second quarter team. Yeah. That is kind of when we explode for a lot of our points. So it'd be amazing if like the second quarter was, take 5 minutes for the first and then just lump all that in the second, because halftime just kind of oftentimes has killed momentum if we've gotten it, whether that's just not being able to adjust to any adjustments that are made on the other side or something like that. It's kind of like the middle is where we get hot and then we start to cool off towards the end. So it's just, I think there's a number. I think Kevin Wilson's teams at Tulsa have scored first like 3 times in 14 games. So we tend to play from behind early.
Yeah, I wish I could say we're too much of the difference there, that we get off to hard starts too, but it really, South Dakota State, who to us, FCS team, we'd figure you guys would be able to probably go in and beat as well. The spread's definitely, a little bit different from one game to the third game of the season as well too. So maybe it's a little bit of, hey, we've seen Tulsa through 2 games, SU through 2 games, but yeah, I gotta say the way to beat us, which I'm curious if you guys think you can really capitalize on it, is just to make Alan Bowman make decisions. The whole entire game this past weekend against Arkansas, it just seemed, hey, if Alan Bowman's back there in the pocket, our offensive line can't hold up forever. They're older guys who are more experienced, but that doesn't mean they're super athletic. They do give up some pass rushes. Granted, SEC defensive lines, but then again, it's an SEC team that we played last week that's not projected to make a bowl game. So I can't give them too much credit at the end of the day. I'm curious if you guys think, hey, we'll be able to drop back in coverage real well, kind of, play with some pace and space, and then make them beat us with their throwing ability if we can, because Alan Bowman's definitely not cutting you up the seams, running up, like Taylor Green was on us last weekend either. He's not going to run it on you whatsoever.
Yeah, I definitely don't think the solution is let Alan Bowman deal back there. I think he'd probably carve us up pretty bad. I'm just going to be honest. I don't think Alan Bowman is an awesome quarterback. I think he's probably a serviceable quarterback that can do the job. And I think he can win you a Big 12 championship, for example. I just don't think he's like the top end talent guy, right? I do think that he could absolutely destroy our defense. I don't want this to get clipped and say like, Tulsa doesn't think that Alan Bowman's not going to throw the ball. I think we're probably going to get torn up pretty bad. Let me be very clear. But I do think tell me if I'm reading the room correctly here. It feels like to me that Oklahoma State's, I think, had 6 first team All Big 12 like preseason prediction people on the team, and 2 of those were on the offensive line. There was a receiver. I saw some defensive line guys, 2 linebackers. So it seems like they got everything. And then they have kind of an average quarterback there that is somewhat hamstringing the offense. Is that how you see Oklahoma State or what?
Yeah, no, we're running through like a bunch of projections for all the games this season, like the NCAA. The one thing that happens more often than not if OSU gets off to a bad start is quarterbacks replaced. Because like Ollie Gordon, you're not going to replace him. Receivers, you can slot them up and down and target one guy more, but you're not really going to switch them out necessarily. We've never been a team that passes the tight end, and I guess until this past weekend, really. And Mike Gundy had some very good things to say about that. Of we should be telling him to pass the tight ends. He's been telling his coordinators, but I'll put them in front of the mic to hear that themselves, I guess. But still, I think Bowman, the perfect situation for him is what he's in right now. Like this is the best Bowman could be, in my opinion, of where he's got talented playmakers around him. He just basically needs to have time to spec there in the pocket and make some plays. but he's not going to make the plays athletically. He's not going to be who we hope our next guys behind him are, which is kind of that more can play out of formation, make plays on the run, extend plays, do whatever. There's just Alan Bowman's not really doing that. He might be checking the third guy down, but he's not really going to be running outside the pocket, making plays, down the middle or on the seams or extending plays and that type of stuff here. And unless we kind of get lucky with some good blocking and some good whiffs on defensive tackles getting us. I mean, that's more why I say for you guys, trying to put my bias aside, I think the way to beat us for sure is just, hey, we'll just drop back in coverage. We'll give Ollie Gordon like 2 to 3 yards, every so often. Maybe he'll rip us up for, a 13-yarder, 15-yarder at one point, but then just kind of keep letting us do that little by little, because we saw this past week, and Casey Dunn likes to try to get the guys out there and really pace the DBs and the safeties real deep, but the linebackers for Arkansas were definitely good enough to stick with us for the whole first half. And we on defense, that's what I'm really worried about. I mean, it's not like you guys haven't scored any points the first game and you're like 0 or 7 points only through the first 2 games. I mean, you guys can put up some points, and our defense, one of those 2 All-Americans and Colin Oliver, he's done for maybe the season, but at least a month. And he's one of the linebackers who was actually playing really well, getting some pass rush. And then the other guy you have to worry about is like Nick Martin and Kendall Daniels. They're making some, household names and that type of stuff now, basically because Oliver's out, but maybe not. Who knows? But as long as you guys can just figure out a way to go over our linebackers and get your guys in space, because Arkansas could do it this whole past weekend against us. I mean, it's odd they lost that game. I could not say enough how, every stat has Arkansas won the game. Like, if you just read the box score and you had to pick like 10 out of the past week, and that's the one where you're going, 110% this team won out of 10 box scores you put up across there. It's bizarre, because we're happy with the win, but I do think there's definitely the ability to beat us. Where you can I'm not saying where we can stop you. I don't think that's necessarily like how we win games. We're going to stop somebody, at least this early in the season. We're going to need to outscore everyone, at least for now.
Yep. Yeah. I think the, you mentioned trying to get our guys past the linebackers into the secondary and see what they can do back there. Our quarterback is he can do it. He's a young guy. I don't know how much you know about him. His name's Kirk Francis. He's a redshirt freshman. He was a true freshman last year. Walked on, earned his scholarship by the end of the season, was the starting guy for the last 4 games. He's still young. He's still got some rust to knock off, to get up to speed to the college game. He looks really good sometimes, and he looks like a freshman other times, as I think you might expect. But when he looks good, he looks really, really good. You can see the potential there for him more often than you see the freshman negatives from him, like way more often. So we do like him a lot. The problem there with getting our receivers open down the field is the offensive line is super young and inexperienced. Pair that with a redshirt freshman quarterback, you need to have things go the right way to put up a lot of points. We put up 62 again in our first week against Northwestern State. But that was an FCS team that was ranked arguably the worst FCS team in FCS. So we were not playing top-end talent there when we put up the 62. Not to say that we can't do it. I do think the offense has a lot of firepower. Camden Benjamin, I mentioned him already. He looks really good. He's going to be good. He can get open. But getting Kirk enough time to find those guys down the field, probably the biggest key, I think, in our game coming up. Is buying him enough time to find open receivers, for those receivers to get open. Then they got to make those plays, obviously, down the field. So I think that's the biggest one for me.
Yeah, because there's kind of you kind of talked about Mike Gundy wants to get tight ends involved, and that is something that I have been pushing for Tulsa to do forever, and I feel like they're starting to do it now. But there's kind of you have to make a decision. Do you use our tight ends, Connor Vaughn, not Grayson Tempest,
McGarry.
Luke McGarry and Ethan Hall. You have to decide if they're going to step into block or if they're going to go out for, go wide. And first game, Connor Vaughn, who is a sophomore, had 2 beautiful touchdowns, and he gives us some size in the receiving game, which we lost because our biggest receiver got injured week 1. And so that's kind of we have the ability to help out our line if we need to, because I think our tight ends are really good. But if we do that, we are then missing some of that size in the backfield and are relying a lot more on our fast young guys, who can be electric out there. I mean, you guys, OSU is very familiar with the Presley family. And so, it's brother v. brother this weekend. Braylon, if he gets space and if he can hold on to the ball, if he can catch it, then he can be dynamic. The issue is last year, he didn't catch it a lot. Supposedly, he's wearing contacts now, which he was made aware of that he probably needed when he was at Oklahoma State. And so week one, he made some really good plays. He had an end around, a touchdown out of the backfield, and was actually bringing stuff in. And so it's kind of comes down to like, are our young receivers going to step up and make plays? Because I think Kirk can hit the window that he needs to. It's just, are these guys going to capitalize?
Well, I'll give the one shout out on the podcast I have to a former high school alumni of mine that's now playing for Tulsa, Elijah Green. Now he's, 3-star. I don't know if he's redshirt or not. There's no stats on him so far, but I assume he's, he may not see any minutes this year. But with the point about Braylon Presley, that was one thing where when I popped up this summer, when I was like, oh, maybe he needs to, wear some contacts. I thought immediately, yeah, his brother wears glasses that are like thick frames in every interview he's in. Every post-game interview, it's like, oh yeah, that's what that guy looks like without a helmet on. Okay, yeah, like it just takes you back a little bit, and you're like, man, oh, well, no wonder his brother would probably need glasses as well too. That makes sense. I understand where that's coming from.
Yeah, he's good, man. Like he's quick. He's probably maybe not our most athletic player, but he's up there. He's in the top tier of our guys. The problem, like Matt mentioned, he just dropped a lot of passes last season. Last game, 2 games ago in our week 1 opener, he made a hell of a catch, like in traffic, middle of the field, big bodies all around him. Tough catch on 3rd and long. Great. Everybody was like, thank God, let's go. Like this is the Braylon Presley we've been waiting for. And then this last game, same situation, but he drops it, so like we're still hoping he can get over the hump and climb the mountain for us. But you can see it on the field. Like there's a reason he went to Oklahoma State initially. He's got the athleticism and the talent to do it. Just got to put it together and make it more consistent.
Yeah, I think if timing is a little different from when he transferred out, I think if he had waited kind of a couple months, I think he could still be at Oklahoma State too, out of just need, honestly. Because once Brennan graduates, man, that would have been sick to have Braylon right behind him to be getting 16 plus targets a game as he did this past weekend, most of college football this past weekend as well too. So we know how to guard Braylon real well. I'm hoping that's the case as well too, because we guarded the older version. We don't have the new version to guard, but we got the older version of the two. I know that's definitely not helping anyone when they're guarding me versus my younger brother. We don't play it all the same. But with that being said, I'm really looking forward to the game this week, and cannot say more and more about that. It's awesome to play an in-state rival, as Gundy said in his presser earlier today. Basically, to keep it, all in-state. You guys play OU last year, play us this year. I do though want to ask: would you rather just play? Hey, we're not going to play OSU, so you can get that extra win for a bowl game, or at least be more likely for it. I don't want to jinx myself here out of thinking we're going to win and then saying all the wrong things either. So I do need to catch myself a little bit there. But yeah, who would you guys rather play? Would you rather just try to not play a Power 4 opponent, or would you rather have that ability to play one every year where you can make some noise?
No, man. No, I'd rather play you guys every year. Yeah. I'd always rather play the Power 4, I guess, these days, opponent than not. Maybe not 2 in the off last season we played 2. We played OU and Washington, and we just got blown out. Yeah, back to back weeks. Didn't love that. We did go to I went to the Washington game in Seattle. Beautiful, fantastic experience. Like that's why I like them, But our AD would disagree, or our previous AD at least. He was not a fan of all the Power 4 opponents on the schedule. As a fan and as a podcaster, I like talking about them. I like watching the games. I like the idea, the potential of winning those games and how much that would mean for TU. So I'm all in on playing, at least, playing one in the offseason and seeing how it goes. seeing how we really stack up. So I'm all in for that. What do you think, Matt?
Yeah, no, I was going to say pretty much the same thing. I don't want to play 2, I think, in non-conference, because then, there's a good chance you're looking at 2-2, or at worst, like 1-3. And then all of a sudden you're scrambling in conference play to try and get 5 wins. And so that's fun, because then you got a chance. You're like, all right, let's see if we can get the upset. Let's see if we can be Northern Illinois over Notre Dame. Let's see if we can do that once. But then you got a nice game after to get ready for the rest of the conference schedule. And it's also, it's just fun. You get much bigger names and like more eyes. Tulsa, we are the smallest school, FBS school. And so like with that, we don't get nearly as many eyes on our games as a lot of teams. And so getting a chance, we played Ohio State a couple of years. I think we had a home and home with them. That was it was a 2.
2-for-1.
Yeah, we definitely did not have Ohio State at Tulsa, but like just playing Ohio State, those games were big eye games, and one of them was really close. The other was not, but that's fun. Like even if we lose, if we make it competitive, if it's a fun game, which sometimes it is, like I see no issue with that, and I'm all for it.
And having the home and home with you guys is just awesome. I don't know who pulled that off. I don't know if it was you guys throwing us a bone, or if our AD just pulled some strings somehow, but getting the home and home with OSU, when that news came out, I think that broke in 2021 or something, that it was going to start this year. Man, come on. That's great. I love the in-state thing, like you were saying. Who doesn't? And I think, I don't know, I'll throw it back to you, I guess. Is it lame for you guys to play Tulsa? Do you like the game? Is it like would you rather play somebody else?
No, honestly, as a huge college football fan, but like with somebody who's just time just seems to be deteriorating, of like free time and ability to do things like make a weekend trip or whatever, like I'm kind of at the stage of life where like, all right, once I get married, then like we'll go places. But for right now, we're just kind of like saving and stuff. Yep. It's awesome to be able to go to an in-state game that's like close as an away game. It's like, and also you get to see, like I mentioned, like Elijah Green went to class in SAS. Like, it's cool seeing in-state kids as well, like out on the football field. My youngest brother, who's 17 right now, he played high school football with him last year. I could tell you like all about him, but the guy's a 3-star who hasn't played a game this year. So once he makes a couple of game starts, I'll be happy to, give you guys the feedback or whatever as well too, once we see him on the field, because kid could be really good. But with that being said, like I just think it's a really cool deal overall, and I'd much rather honestly play your fans than the OU fans. It's not even about the teams. I don't need to say much about it, but I can wear an orange polo on a Friday night flight on the same night that OU's playing Temple, and given like 7 like side eyes and a little bump in the shoulder and getting on the aisle, and all know it's in good fun, smiling, whatever right afterwards, right? Because we're not gonna play them again for some time. Yeah, but with that being said, like I'd much rather play you guys than like play. I'm not sure who the direct comparison would be, but like definitely versus you guys versus Arkansas State or versus, Central Michigan. Are you kidding me? I could get real far away from them, the whole program, for forever. So like keeping all the money in the state too, making sure that, and I think calling kind of black here as well too. Like Boone Pickens Stadium sold out this year. Now maybe a little bit spiteful because hey, OU's gone, we're going to sell it out. Maybe the seat rearrangement helped out a little bit with that too. But with all that being said, like I really love going to away games. I do not have Oklahoma State season tickets, but like going to the Tulsa game it's way cheaper to drive from Oklahoma City where I live to Tulsa and back, go to the game, hang out, spend the day in a really, really nice city, especially the second biggest city in the state, and enjoy the gathering place and all other stuff too before coming back home. Like it's just a really, really great way to spend like a whole entire day, have kind of some family fun there with it too included, and not spend like what seems like just too much money on an OSU game on a weekend for a non-conference opponent, especially too. Like would I rather be playing a home and home series with like Arkansas or Oregon or Ohio State, for example, or whatever, versus Tulsa? I'm kind of like you guys, I think, in that. Like, I'll play one, but the Arkansas opponent annoys me just a little bit because they're not that good. So, like, you get to play a Power 4 opponent. Yeah, they've got Power 4 guys, but, like, you're playing them so early, you're favored by 10. But what if Arkansas ends up, like, winning their SEC group? Then our win's much better, but, like, the time we played them, it wasn't that good of a win. We're supposed to win by 10, so I'm always in between on that too. It's like I'd much rather play Alabama home and home, especially if we're like going to be favored or something, and it turns out they're not good. You just can't have it both ways, I know. So I'd much rather play one a year, kind of like you guys were saying. That's like in-state, has some neutrality to it, and is really cool and a fun event. And then one game where it's against another Power 4 team. It's really good to see, kind of test our skills. Because right after you guys, we play Utah and then K-State back to back. Like, the biggest worry I have about this game is that we're going to be looking past it. That's really at the end of the day. But with that being said, what's your guys' biggest worry about the game? Then we'll do score predictions here as well.
Biggest worry. God, there's several probably, but I mentioned, I think our offensive line is going to be a concern. They've outperformed so far. We've only played an FCS team and an Arkansas State team that's going to be probably average to above average in the Sun Belt. So they haven't seen a ton of challenge yet. But they've done better than I thought they were going to do. Like it's mostly a brand new offensive line, like there were a lot. That's probably our biggest question mark area coming into the season. So far, they've been mostly fine. I hope that continues, but there's real risk that they get exposed in this game. So we'll see what happens there. Aside from them, since I mentioned them already, our secondary, if Bowman gets to sit back there and deal, I think we're in a lot of trouble. Our starting safety is 5'10", former walk-on guy. Our other starting safety is a former wide receiver. He played receiver last year, and now he's playing safety. So there's some question there on can they hang with the big dogs? Like Dane, the 5'10" guy, that guy plays harder than anybody on the team, but he can get out physical. He's not a big dude. And if anybody's going to out physical you, it's going to be when you start playing the up in the Power 4 style teams, So there's a chance that they get exposed as well. Those are probably, I think, my two biggest risks. Matt, did you have anything else?
Yeah, my biggest fear is Ollie. So I went to a lot of OSU games last year. They have become my second team through my girlfriend, who went to OSU. And so I just watched him wreck everybody last year. And seeing some of the big runs that we allowed the last 2 weeks, I just have fear that Ollie is going to carve us up. And I mean, like Ryan said, I think that's going to probably force us to load the box, and then we're just not going to have enough in the back to prevent Bowman, who can do just enough to make us pay for that. So I think we're going to be so focused on not letting Ollie beat us that the rest of the game is going to kind of get past us. That's my biggest concern.
All right. Well, with that being said here, I guess score predictions here. I'll go first. We're looking at a line right now of OSU -20. I don't think we cover that, to be honest, just because I do think that we haven't scored enough to cover that yet in a game. With how much our defense is just going to allow scoring, just period. Either guys are getting tired because of the heat, because it's 11 a.m. kickoff. It's supposed to be like 90 this weekend, or just other factors and other variables as well too. Missing our best defensive lineman, I think our best defensive rusher, whatever you want to say, with Colin Oliver, could be tough there as well too. So at the end of the day, I do think we put up a lot of points though, but I think it's just not more than 20 in difference there. So I'm going to say that it's OSU 44, Tulsa 32. What about you guys?
Nice, giving us some points there. I appreciate it. All right, that's more than I've got for us.
I'm closer to the 24 mark than I am the 62, but still, if you guys can. Well, I've said before about the Arkansas guys, like if they can score 70 in a game, you're not playing against no one. And also your talent gap between who you played week 1 and who Arkansas played week 1 is quite smaller of a gap, as well too. I would think than UAPB and Arkansas. So I give you guys some credit there on that one for sure.
Yeah, no question. Cool. Yeah, I mean, I a lot of the same points as you. I don't know. I was gonna say I don't think Oklahoma State will cover. Would not be surprised if you do. Coming off a tough one, that's a tough loss that we just had to Arkansas State. Should have won that game, really, by all accounts. Outplayed Arkansas State mostly the entire game. Sucks to lose it. So we'll see how we're a young team. Can they bounce back well and come out ready to go? And if things don't go well early, do we stay in it? Right. So we'll see. I'm going to go 35-17 Oklahoma State. That doesn't quite that gets Tulsa to cover there. Tulsa's been really, really good historically about covering spreads, specifically against like power teams. I don't know what the record is. It's like 18-2 over the last 20 games. So I feel somewhat confident in that, but we'll see what happens. 35-17 feels good to me.
Yeah, I will always take Tulsa to cover the spread. I think last year against Washington, it was like a 34-point spread. And we only lost by 31. So we covered. I think this game hits the over. I think the over-under is like 62.5. I think I saw. So I think it's going to be somewhere around like, I'm going to say 52 to 35. I think it'll just be a high scoring affair.
That's a high power game. Let's
go. All right. Well, I'll take that many points every day of the week, at least, if we're scoring on offense like that. Because against Utah and K-State, we're going to have to score quite a few points, especially against their lines as well, too. So that'd be great. Well, Matt and Ryan, thanks so much for joining here on the CGA Tour podcast. Where can everyone find the Golden Hurricast?
We're on all the stuff, all the podcast players at least. Apple, Spotify, Pocket Cast, Overcast, everything you can find. We're there, so check that out. We're on Twitter at Golden Hurricast if you want to follow along for game day. We tweet during the game, stuff like that. And then we're on, our website is thegoldenhurricast.com if you just want to follow us along on the web.
Yeah, and wherever you're listening to this, click the link down low in the description to be directed to Matt and Ryan's site there. And thanks so much everyone listening. We'll be back in here soon. All right, well, thanks for listening to the first half of the CGA Tour podcast episode. Now, just to get to kind of briefly hear some news and notes from the Arkansas game, but first from Mike Gundy's press conference here earlier today, just want to go ahead here and start out by playing a clip here from his news conference on September 9th.
He made some plays. Yeah, he had a couple balls that we feel like eventually as the season goes on, he'll make those catches. But he didn't feel well. It's one of the things about athletics, college football, and daily life. There's times we don't feel good. We got to go to work. And, same thing with him. So I was proud of him for competing.
Now, just want to be clear here. That was a quote about Deshaun Stripling playing through an illness here this past weekend, which overall does make me feel a lot better, and kind of a great intro here for the Arkansas-Oklahoma State football game recap here this past weekend in Stillwater. I did not pick the score of the game correctly. Some bettors who got it at the line at 7.5 did pick it correctly, even though the game was a double overtime game. Shout out to BS Man himself there with that stat, and kind of interesting point here that I learned earlier today from him. But with that being said here, Gundy's not wrong. Players, still show out there, make great plays, all type of stuff. But if you're watching the game for Oklahoma State and you're going, man, Stripling just does not look the same at all as he did against South Dakota State. Is he only able to do this against weaker opponents? Well, not the whole story. This game specifically here, he apparently was just, he was sick and he needed some time to recover. So it makes me feel a little bit better about how Deshaun Stripling's game was this past weekend.
I'm going to go back into coach talk, or do you want me to tell you the truth?
The truth.
The truth?
Yes.
He was very inexpensive. The number of players that we go after that were ready to play at this level, we can't afford. So he was a good buy and a really quality young man that had success and has physical characteristics that we can work with Rob Glass and develop him. And so that's why he ended up here, in my opinion. So we saw some things that we felt like that we could develop into a good player at this level, and it wasn't going to cost us the money that we didn't have.
So Gundy there is talking about the Oklahoma State transfer, redshirt senior, 6'2". I mean, linebacker, defensive guy, whatever you want to say. But also the Big 12 newcomer of the week for week 2 here, Obi Ezigbo. And specifically here about how Obi was not that expensive because he transferred over from Gannon University, which is, I believe, also a familiar name here of where our defense coordinator, Brandon Nardo, also transferred from as well, too, or I guess you should say got promoted to or joined the coaching staff or whatever the right terminology is there. But with that being said, I think it's interesting that Gundy used the term, we don't have the funds or underpaid. And I know at least as a huge Oklahoma State fan, so, hey, the bias is there, of course. But I do know from following Oklahoma State athletics for 20 plus years that's kind of a theme here, especially during the NIL this past couple of years, where, hey, we just may not have the funds. We don't have the funds or the means to pay players to keep them here. Gundy talked a lot about, hey, don't really love the NIL at first. It seems like from now, he just kind of put a matter of fact, like, hey, we do not have the funds or the ability to pay players at this level and the amount of them to come here to Stillwater and play out the games. So Colin Oliver goes down. Obi Ezigbo joins the team basically on the field, but he's been part of the team the whole offseason, etc. He made a very really good impact, was Big 12 newcomer of the week, but also this quote specifically from Gundy does show a little bit how he's just not in love with the NIL theory, I guess, overall. When he's having to use terms like this of like pay players, etc., it doesn't necessarily come as like, hey, you know what, like the guys who we could afford. It's put in a very matter of fact, I guess. It doesn't seem like it's necessarily like praising the system or really evaluating it a ton. But then again, I'm not trying to get clickbaited here or put out some term of like, oh, Gundy doesn't like paying players. I'm sure he's fine with it now. He's adjusting just like all of us are trying to adjust to understand it at the end of the day. So interesting so far here. But one more quote here and then just the final recap of thoughts on the Arkansas game.
It doesn't make a difference to me what they call. I just need consistency. Okay. And what upset me was we've done that multiple times and nobody ever said a word about it. And so those officials, it's not their fault either. It's the guy in charge. That's his fault. It's just like celebrations. So how are we going to call celebrations now? No, don't get me wrong. Bowman should have got flagged. He should have got 2 flags. Okay. But the point being is what's a celebration in your mind might not be in mine. It's judgmental. And we need to clean that up. There's only one way to clean it up. No celebrations. Because how do we know? I see it differently than you do. But that was an issue. We had the cut block on the touchdown. We threw a touchdown to Brennan, right? Yeah. And they called it cut block based on the tackle box. So the tackle box is an imaginary spot that we use for blocking. We use for the quarterback to throw the ball away. And once the play's established based on where the outside leg of the tackle is and the outside leg of the tackle is, that tackle box is established. And that never moves. So if there's anything that goes on outside by rule that's illegal, it's a penalty. If there's anything that stays inside, it's not a penalty based on cut blocks, chop blocks, quarterback, all those things. We're getting inconsistencies on that. We shouldn't be.
Because there's another one where I got on this end zone where they threw a flag for dribbling, I guess, pick playing, but they waved it off saying it wasn't pass interference. And that was
which is okay, because in that situation, I saw a receiver catch a ball. I saw an offensive player bump into a defensive player. So I'm not sure. Okay, I'm going to flag it, and then we're going to talk about it. Was it behind the line, if it's legal? And I'm going to talk to him, and we're going to make a decision and then pick it up. I'm good with that. I actually think that's good officiating, especially if they pick it up for us and it's our favor. Okay. But here's the issue I have. I don't have a problem with the SEC officials. I don't have a problem with the Big 12 officials. I got a problem with Steve Shaw, who's in charge. He needs to get him in one room and say, guys, this is what we're calling. Because when I go to play a game and the ACC's officiating, if they make 3 calls that they say, well, this is what we do in the ACC, and it hurts my team, then that's not fair to my team. I need to know what the rules are. I'll play by the rules. I just need to know what they are.
So specifically there, Gundy, He really goes on quite a rant, and then is asked about it again, just with a little bit more prodding as well too from journalists of, hey, what do you think about the officiating? Any more thoughts? Have been contacted since Saturday, where Gundy was as heated as I've seen him heated on his sideline for OSU in quite some time at the officials. Now he's been heated at players before, been heated at the other opposing team, etc. But at officials specifically, there was an opportunity where Oklahoma State could have definitely just won the game in regulation, and basically they drew the Arkansas player off sides when they put a tight end in motion towards the end of the game on a 4th and 4. We ran out there to go line up. We have the timeouts. We could also just take the penalty either way and back up another 5 yards. It didn't matter. Just to punt it just a little bit farther, so be it. Still is probably going to go in their end zone. But with that being said, we basically put a tight end in motion. Gundy's saying, hey, we did this with Big 12 officials this whole offseason here as part of our practices to make sure we're with and all the guidelines. And then he names the head of officiating for the NCAA. And hey, we got to get him in the room. Steve Shaw is a specific person where it's not something that comes to mind. I mean, when you look it up immediately here, it just shows up basically, Stephen Norris Shaw, an actor, or, basically some other ambiguations here as well too. But it doesn't pull up like the head of officiating for NCAA. So with that being said, I think Gundy's trying to make a point. And that's where Steve Shaw is named to the coordinator of officials. Like, he is the guy since December of 2019 here. And when Gundy's like specifically going after a guy, I do think it has a point. I do think it has a real big point when he's specifically naming someone and saying, hey, get it together, or at least get it together so all the officials are on the same page. Because what he's doing is deliberate. He's not saying the officiating was bad. He's not saying it was terrible. He's not going after any specific official. He's going after the head of officiating. And just saying we need to get them all in a room and get all the same things going on, because we could have, in theory, but also in practice, should have won this game in regulation. It should have been offsides, new set of downs, they're out of timeouts, or they have to burn all of them. We can run out the clock with under a minute left. Like that's what should have happened there. And the fact that it didn't, and we still won, is very fortunate. But as an Oklahoma State fan for quite some time, and seeing at least the most recent example that paints a real clear image in my mind is the Central Michigan game, where that's counted as a loss. Afterwards, it shouldn't have been counted a loss. It should have been the end of the game. And we took that exact play from the Florida State game 1 year prior to that game. And Florida State wasn't called anything, and then we were. It is bizarre. So it is one of those things where I think Gundy has every right in his mind, and every right in every Oklahoma State fan's mind, to go, hey, listen, we just want to be clear. We want to be, here's what it is. Here's what the officials are saying. Here is where the line is. Do not cross it. Here's exactly what to do. Part A, B, C, and D, E, F, G, and outline it, with smaller letters in between, and, Roman numerals, et cetera. Like, get as detailed as possible here, so there's no ambiguous ruling that can come up later on. With all that being said here too, I do want to talk about the Arkansas game and how that it still is shocking to me that Oklahoma State won, that my favorite team won at the end of the day. But with that being said, I'm really happy, of course, that we won. We covered the opening line spread, as I said earlier. I just am really amazed that this game fell our way, because if you look through all stats, third down completion percentage, turnovers, I think we're even on, if I remember correctly. Maybe we're up 1, excuse me. We had a chance. We scored a touchdown. Brent Presley caught the ball in the end zone. You just heard the Gundy quote about that, but where it was ruled a chop block there and taken off, and then we only scored 3 points. Either this team is very, very good at halftime adjustments, and we don't really make in-game adjustments that much until halftime, or just like the pregame stuff, when it doesn't work, it really shows up. It doesn't work when our game plan just is out of the box and bad. We can still win games like we did, but the pregame plan clearly did not work. I mean, for whatever the defense wanted to do, they gave up 21 points in the first half, and the defense really, I'm not going to say we gave up 28, but like the defense got 7 back, I guess. I'll give them that. The offense didn't do anything either, but this is worrying. that, hey, a mobile quarterback, we're going to see another couple mobile quarterbacks here through the rest of the Big 12 schedule. Avery Johnson's the next one that I'm looking at going, okay, K-State at K-State in a couple weeks. Like, that all of a sudden is a much scarier game after seeing what Taylon Green, who I don't think is as talented as Avery Johnson. It's really hard to tell so far. Both are starting here either in their first couple of games in their careers or just first couple of games in a new team. But with that being said, I'm worried about the K-State game already. We haven't even played Tulsa this weekend, not let alone Utah at home there as well too. So that doesn't make me feel great. But at the same point, I'm going to really just go, hey, you know what? We're able to pull out wins that we maybe shouldn't win, that we can have things break our way. We can have guys create things that go, hey, you know what? Like, shouldn't have gone our way, but we still won. So we can have the, you know, some things just roll our way here and there. Maybe that's more of a veteran presence as a team. But I'm not leaving the Arkansas game going, oh my gosh, look how good we are at X, Y, and Z. Like, let's get Ollie Gordon out in the flat more. Let's do some more things to get him the ball, period. Clearly, he's a good pass catcher. He caught the 2-point conversion. And also, he got the touchdown, you know, for us to win the game in double overtime. So how can we get Ollie Gordon the ball more often? He did create a huge chip block, 1.2 in the backfield for Bowman to get a pass off downfield. The tight end play was incredible as well, too. Tight end sells it, or tight end / fullback, cowboy back, sells that block for so long before going out in the open and the flat to catch that 30-plus yard catch. Like, it's those plays that I go, man, this team could be, we could be really good. We could draw up some dynamic stuff. We could be really rolling in it. But then there's also the plays where I'm going, okay, Ollie Gordon he touched the ball 6 times in the first half, and he didn't get any yards to speak of. And he really didn't make any impacts on the game until the very, very end. But it's also not like our receiving game was great. So I'm going to come back to the first point I made here when I started talking, you know, after the Tulsa interview with the Golden Hurricast. I really hope that Stripling being sick, Presley having to go up against some really tall, athletic, long defenders who are able to stick with him because he's a super fast guy, has great footwork, but he's not the biggest guy. And then Rashad Owens, who I haven't heard anyone talk about yet, but also he was a household name last year to end the season, so I'm kind of worried about that a little bit. But then again, he had a couple plays that just his hands just were super strong, but just not strong enough for that one key moment that would have kept the drive alive in the first half or something close to it. So, you know, I'm thinking about it more and more, and I'm going, I'm happy to always to walk out with the win, but what does that mean for this game this weekend? But also going forward, I think against Tulsa this weekend, yeah, I think we win. I just gave out a 44-32 prediction. I'm actually thinking we win by a little bit more just because I don't think my math works out perfectly with 32 points for them, with just having it all 7s and 3s. So I'm going to say revise a little bit and say 44-31, just because that's at least 4 touchdowns and a field goal for them. I really like us playing against Tulsa. I think it really could be a momentum builder this weekend as well, too. And it could really be a good chance to see Oklahoma State kind of puff our chest a little bit and go, hey, here's an easier game. Like, we're playing against an opponent here who just lost to Arkansas State, granted by 4 at Arkansas State. Arkansas State's not horrible at all. And Tulsa did put up 60-plus points in their week 1 game. But all that being said, when the away fans think it won't be close and the line is 20-plus points, I think we'll win, not by 20, but I would not be shocked at all for us to win big. I would be shocked if this game is close after the first half, and that would be a real worrying sign. So I'm looking at the defense, seeing how, you know, Obi and Nick Martin, Kendall Daniels, etc., Colin Clay, you know, others can really show up on the defensive side, Corey Black too, and really just stop the Tulsa offense completely. Like, if we can shut them out, if we can just really stop them from scoring. They scored 21 points in the first half of their game last week against Arkansas State, and then they scored a field goal before the game ended. And that's how they lost their game. I just really hope we can slow them down to start out the game and then win it down the stretch. I definitely think it's possible. Would love to see some real good Oklahoma State orange in the end zone there in Tulsa, and just really a good momentum confidence builder coming out of this week against Tulsa, because the 2 games right after this one are not easy. So if we look shaky in this game, I'm going to be much more nervous about those next two games after this one, because this one should be kind of, hey, we're winning by just showing up. This one we should not need necessarily talent or play calling, to win and beat Tulsa. We should only need one of the two. And I think we have the talent walking off the bus pretty good. When just heard their interview, they've got a redshirt freshman and a brand new O-line starting. Like this should be the game where our defense really gets to their quarterback. We rack up a lot of sacks. We, again, for maybe the third week in a row, have the Big 12 Defensive Player of the Week, because this past week here, one heck of a cool thing to see that you've got in back-to-back weeks, safety Trey Rucker week 1, and then linebacker Nick Martin in week 2. So how about week 3 we get Corey Black or Kendall Daniels in there? Probably, maybe you get Obi. Hey, hats off to the guy. Showed up in second half of week 2 against an SEC team. Like, way to go. And yeah, I'll probably reference several more times how we beat an SEC opponent this season, because I can. And then when Arkansas looks like they may not win another game, then I'll stop. But until then, Oklahoma State fans should be very happy, excited, very, very excited for the rest of the season here, and have all the energy and optimism in the world. But at the same point, if you're feeling a little cardiac Cowboys coming on there in the second or third or fourth quarter of the Tulsa game, I don't want to think about what you're going to be feeling in the Utah or K-State game, or what I'll be feeling either. So fingers crossed, it's a good end of the non-conference slate. And we're back here talking up next week with Utah preview with the Utah podcast guys, and just going off and off about how awesome the game against Tulsa was, and how a momentum builder it is, and a confidence booster, et cetera, all those key catchphrases and terms for the Oklahoma State team. So with that being said, thank you so much for listening to the latest episode of the CGA Tour podcast. If you're not already, please follow us on Twitter and Instagram, as well as, shout out on YouTube too. Go leave a comment on there for the next episode, and whatever topics you guys are thinking, give me some feedback here as well too. Thank you so much to everyone who's recently tuned in and been listening, watching, all those good things. Podcast is available on iTunes, Spotify, YouTube, and wherever you get your podcasts. Thank you so much again, and we'll catch you guys again soon.